The following is a conversation that I had with someone I met on Twitter by the name of Lindsay Stamp. The reason that this interview is interesting is because typically I hang out with entrepreneurs and I don't understand 9-to-5ers at all. I think 9-to-5ers, their view on money and the world, it doesn't make sense to me. However, Lindsay is someone that I have followed on Twitter for a while and commented on a lot of her stuff. And she's someone that has a 9-to-5 and went from over $100,000 in consumer debt to paying that all off, understanding money, starting to invest, and documented her entire journey. And many of the takes and approaches that she has with money, I agreed with. And so I invited her on the show to say, hey, I don't typically agree with a lot of how 9-to-5ers think. You are a 9-to-5er, but yet have a lot of these, views and beliefs that I do. I want to understand how you got to this level, understand this kind of 9-to-5 mindset a little bit more, and why you've chosen to stay in your job when you have the mindset to be able to go and do something on your own, and just overall have a unique conversation that I don't normally get to have. So she agreed, and the following is that interview. Welcome back, everybody, to the Golden Mic. My name is Josh Forti, and today I have someone that a little different than maybe a traditional guest, but someone I'm very much looking forward to. As you know, we're trying to build a place where the conversation happens, and money is a big topic of conversation. And so my next guest here, Lindsay, is someone that I follow on X, but Twitter, because Twitter is way better. Twitter, and some of her takes, I'm very inspired by kind of her journey with money and things of that nature. And there's some things where I'm like, ooh, I just got to understand. I've got to do it. So I'm very excited for the conversation. Lindsay, welcome to the Golden Mic. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Okay. So we've never met before. We met, probably 90 seconds before we hopped on this. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. So I have some questions. Give me a little background. Like, how old are you? Where are you from? Who are you in a nutshell? Fill me in.
All right. So my name is Lindsay. I am 30 years old and I'm originally from Erie, Pennsylvania. I currently live in Pittsburgh, which is about 2 hours south of Erie. In a nutshell, I am what I would say is a very regular person. I went to college, played basketball in college. When I got done, I got a job in the insurance industry. I've been in the insurance industry for 9 years. I'm a product manager. And, I started out like everybody I think does, just not having a good grasp on finance in general. And I made a lot of mistakes and eventually figured out like I'm going to work until the day I die if I don't figure this out. So started making some different decisions, got into real estate, started investing in the stock market. And now I'm just documenting my journey, having fun with it, and hoping I can help somebody along the way.
That's amazing. Yeah, you're getting famous on Twitter now. By the way, do you call it Twitter or X?
Twitter. It's always Twitter.
It's always Twitter. Thank God. I'm like, I love Elon. I drive a Tesla. I buy every one of his products. I've got a freaking poster of him smoking a weed on Joe Rogan hanging on my wall. Like, I'm a huge fan,
Nice.
but I'm like, dude, it's Twitter, dude. Like, you can't kill the brand. So, okay. So, are you married? Are you religious at all? Like, any background there?
Yeah, I'm married. I have a wife. So I grew up Catholic. So I went to a Catholic school from the time I was in 3-year-old preschool until I graduated high school. So through 12th grade. My first year at college, the initial college that I went to was a Christian university. Then I transferred to a public university. So the first time I had ever gone to a public school, I was 19, 20 years old. And obviously I'm not Catholic now just because, it's a little bit hard with my lifestyle to do that.
They probably don't like that too much.
Right?
Yeah.
But I'm still a Christian. I still, believe in God and go to church. And we have a great Christian church here in Wexford, Pennsylvania.
That's awesome. Cool. Do you guys plan on having kids at all?
Yeah, we do. We're actually in the process of trying to start a family. It's obviously a little bit harder, for us than it is for typical couple. But we're in the works.
Cool. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't know how I found you on Twitter. But Twitter is good at, popping things up, and money obviously is something that, as you said, most people do not have any remote grasp on what it is, how it works, or how it should be used of any shape or form. And for me as an entrepreneur, I have been an entrepreneur my entire life. I grew up on a farm, but ever since then it has been businesses and the world. So for me, the traditional college system, the traditional finance system, anything traditional just didn't make sense to me at all anyway. And so like when I look at the money system and I look at the world, like I'm like, you're all dumb and entrepreneurs are the best and yay, right? But as I've gotten into money, I realized that I thought the only way to get rich was entrepreneurship. And then I'm like, oh, that's not true at all, right? So part of the reason that I think, fascinated by your content and your stuff was you seem to have a unique grasp on money that is, for lack of a better term, kind of very entrepreneurial, right? Yet you are in a 9 to 5. You have
Mhm.
a traditional life, which is very different than the world I live. But like, you're someone that, like, I'm like, you seem cool. Like, you don't seem like a normal 9 to 5er, if you will, right? Like, we like to make fun of 9 to 5ers and they like to make fun of us, and it's great. Um, what is your, like, what got you into specifically the finance thing? And like, help me understand your philosophy around investing and money as a whole.
Yeah, sure. I would say that my philosophy, and I've said this before, I've posted about it before, I've said about, on other podcasts that I've been on, like regular people can build wealth by working a 9 to 5 and investing their income over the long term. I think that there is the stigma that you have to be an entrepreneur. And my take on it is it doesn't matter how you get money, it matters what you do with the money that you get. If
Mm,
you're going to get $100,000 as an entrepreneur, or you're going to get $100,000 at a W-2, it doesn't matter. You take that money that you bring home and you do something powerful with it that's going to set yourself up for a better future. And so I guess where I come from is like, you know, I grew up in a very middle class family.
yeah.
I had my parents both worked 2 jobs. Nobody was, my grandfather was an entrepreneur. I'll say that. So he always had different businesses. Some of them were great, some of them were not. It was kind of like feast or famine for
Yeah.
him and my
Yep.
mom and my uncles. It was like when things were great, they were really great. And when they weren't, they weren't.
Yeah.
And I think, my parents tried a little bit of both. There were times where like they owned a travel agency and they owned a smoke shop and they owned a hearing aid business, like some random stuff.
Yeah.
But they always had W-2s as well. It wasn't like they were like fully into that.
Yeah.
And so I think I got to see both sides of it. And for
Yeah.
me, it was like when I got out of college and I got some offers to play basketball overseas. And it was one of those things where it's like, what am I going to do moving forward? Am I going to do something I'm passionate about that doesn't really pay the bills or doesn't make a lot of money? Or am I going to go the route to try to make as much money as I possibly can and do something with that money
Yeah.
later? And I went that route. And like I've said before, I got myself into some debt and I've been very open about that. Like,
Yeah.
I bought a Jeep Wrangler and I had a jet ski and I had a house and I put furniture on a credit card and I took a bunch of trips and I racked up $100,000 in debt. And
Crazy.
I think one day, like when I added it all up and I saw it, I was like, I have a great job, I make a great income, and I have nothing to show for it but this pile of debt.
Yeah.
And we just got really serious about paying it off. We spent a year and a half, we paid it all off. We have no consumer debt, and
Amazing.
it really
Congratulations, by the
just
way.
oh, thank you. And it really just showed me like nothing about my life is going to change unless I change and I
Yeah.
do something different with my money, which is don't be a regular normal person that just is okay with having debt and taking on debt forever. Like that's
Yeah.
not the way that I want to live. And it just completely, reshaped my mind when I realized I'm going to be working a job until I'm deceased unless I do something else.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think gave you permission to rack up $100,000 in consumer debt? Like what? Like what? Because like logically, you could ask, I think, the average person and be like, "Hey, do you think it's a good idea to rack up $100,000 in consumer debt?" And they would be like, "No." But like
Right.
a lot of people have $100,000 in consumer debt, right? So like, what do you think? I highly doubt your parents told you go rack up 100 grand in consumer debt. Like, what gave you permission, and like, what were the decisions that were going through your mind at that point?
In my mind, it was always if I can afford the payments, I can afford the debt. So it
Mm.
was if I want to buy this Jeep and this Jeep costs me $500 a month and I can make that payment, I can buy it. And if I want this furniture and I'm going to put it on a no interest credit card for the next 12 to 18 months, whatever it was, and I make these X amount of payments to have it paid off by the time that's done and I can afford that payment, I can do it. If I
Mm.
want to, whatever it was. But I think what I do want to say is that I think people um, underestimate how easy it is to rack up 100,000 in debt nowadays. Like
Yeah.
you have a 20, 30, $40,000 student loan. You go buy a $40,000 car and you're pretty much there.
Mm.
You add in a few credit cards or like a toy or a vacation, like you're at $100,000. So
Yeah.
it's not hard to do. And it wasn't something where I ever thought like, who's giving me permission to do this or is this smart? It was
Yeah.
just, I can make the payments. I'm not going to go bankrupt. I mean, obviously I was not banking on like losing my job or something. But it was just got away from me, something I didn't really think about. And then all of a sudden one day I was like, hey, I know I have some debt. I know I should pay it off. Like, let's see what the reality is. And the
Yeah.
reality was staggering, obviously.
Yeah. When you sat down and added it all up, I think a lot of people are afraid to look, right? Like I talk to some
Yes.
people because a lot of my wife tells me, and my friends are like, Josh, you should like go talk to normal people, right? Because I'm like in this little bubble, right, of like my business and other entrepreneur friends. And so like now I'm like run a Bible study and like hang out with normal people, and they're great. But like
Yeah.
sometimes I like sit down and ask them questions, and I'm like, and that's one of the things I found is like people are afraid to look, right? So
Yes.
when you actually sat down and looked at it, first off, were you afraid? But then secondly, was your reaction immediately, oh my gosh, this was a problem and I've got to go fix it? And there was an instant change? Or like, what did that process look like?
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree with what you're saying. And actually, I think I've made a post about that exactly. Was like, most people don't ever tackle their debt because they are afraid to just add it up and see what the reality is. Like, they know in the back of their mind, like they have some debt, but they've never actually got a pen and paper and wrote it down and really like seen the reality of the situation. But what I'll say is, me and my wife we were living in Colorado at the time,
Oh, that's where
and
I'm from. Nice.
nice, yeah, we were living in Denver, a little south of Denver, and we had come back to Pittsburgh to visit some family, and we drove because we had our dogs and we had some stuff we wanted to take back. So we drove across the country, and we were home for Christmas. And then when Christmas was done, New Year's was done, we drove home. And when we were driving home, like we just made a list. Like, we took out the computer, got on Excel, we listed all the debt, and we're like, holy crap, this is not good.
Like, did you do it
So
while you were driving?
yeah, I drove and
That's
she sat in the
amazing.
passenger seat and like added it all up. And then we were just kind of like, what are our priorities? Like, is our priority to like look like we're doing great financially when in reality we're
Yeah.
not? Like, neither one of us, we're both super competitive people. We've both played basketball in college. So we, have always played sports. We've always been competitive, and we've always kind of wanted to be the best that we can be in each aspect of our life. In our
Yeah.
careers, we work hard. With our families, we have good relationships, good friendships. And then we just had this one area of our life that was like really lacking. And it's like,
Yeah.
or do you want to, I don't want to say it, I hate to say it this way, but it looks fraudulent, whenever you have like a bunch of nice things, but deep down you have a whole bunch of debt. Like,
Yeah.
that's not the way that we wanted to live.
Yeah.
And so what we did was I actually just got the Dave Ramsey like Total Money Makeover book, and
Mm.
I read it, and I was like, let's do the debt snowball method. So we just listed
Yeah.
all the debt from smallest to largest, and paid minimum payments on everything except the smallest one, and we just threw everything at that one and rolled it and rolled it and rolled it until it
Yeah.
was done.
That's how long did it take you?
Just under a year and a half.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Do you guys both have like decent jobs?
Yeah, yeah, we do, and
Okay.
and that I want to be transparent about. It's
Okay.
like, it does, we were able to do it quicker than I think probably other people would have been able to if they had a lower salary. But I will say, we sold a lot of stuff. So I sold the
Yeah.
Jeep, we sold the jet ski,
Bad
we
day.
sold a bunch of furniture. Yeah. And we sold clothes and shoes. And I got a second job. I was serving, and we were driving for DoorDash, and like we just did everything.
Yeah.
We made great money at our 9 to 5s, but we did a lot extra too. So it
Yeah.
was a combination.
Yeah, and I think that's that's the entrepreneurial mindset that I'm talking about, right? Like it's like you found ways to go make money. And
Yeah.
like I think I always say like at the core of an entrepreneur, like not even a businessman person, right? Because like you can be a business owner and not really be an entrepreneur, I feel like, right? They're technically different things. Like at the core of an entrepreneur is like you you solve problems, right? Like, and that's what you get paid. It's like I got a problem, how do I fix it, right? Um, you mentioned Dave Ramsey, and I feel like this is a great transition into more strategy and philosophy on like your approach to money.
Mhm.
I'm just going to start with the question of what do you think of Dave Ramsey?
I think Dave Ramsey is great for people that have a lot of debt. I think his plan works. It worked for me. It works for other people that I know. And what I'll say about money in general is that I think it's all psychological. Everything
Mm,
about money is
yeah,
psychology. How you grew up with money, how your parents handled money, how the
yeah,
people around you handled and viewed money, all of that plays a massive part in how you look at money.
yeah,
And, you know, your psychology and doing the debt snowball is that you're able to stack up wins. Like
Yeah.
you knock out the smallest one, that's psychological. Okay, it's
Yep.
working. This process is working now. Let me go to the next one. Okay, I knocked that one out. Like another win. Whereas like the other method, I think the only other method is the debt avalanche, which is paying by highest interest rate. But
Yep.
in my opinion, like your highest interest rate could be, 22 to 25% on a credit card, and you could have 20,000 in credit card debt or 25,000 in credit card debt or whatever the case is. And you could be paying it for months and months and months and never see that debt fall off.
Yeah.
And people give up because of that, because they feel like they're not making progress. They still have
Yeah.
the same number of debts. And that's why I think the debt snowball works and is the most powerful. And then what I'll segue into is that I don't think that he gives great investment advice. I don't follow his
Yeah.
investment advice. I didn't follow his emergency fund advice. I didn't follow his real estate advice, and I own real estate. But if you have consumer debt, he's the one.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's where I think most people could probably agree on that statement. Me as an entrepreneur, I'm like, ew, Dave Ramsey. Oh my gosh. Right. And I think it just boggled my mind how many people have consumer debt. And then I'm like, oh, everybody has consumer debt. I understand why Dave Ramsey is Dave Ramsey, right?
Exactly why he has so much business.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. When you say psychology, like money is psychology. I would think that psychology is probably the thing that I love studying outside of religion. I love studying religion, right? Because I'm like so fascinating to me, like all the different ones and all those. And I have my opinions on it or whatever. But human
Yeah.
psychology, I think, plays right into that. How did you How did you grow up? Well, what was your psychology of money?
Yeah, I would say that historically, like I had a rather scarce mindset when it comes to money. And as an example, like um back whenever I was growing up, like I said, my parents had two jobs and they tried owning businesses at times. And my mom was the spender. So she liked to shop and
Huh.
she liked to spend. And my dad was super frugal, like super
Interesting.
frugal. Never bought clothes, never bought anything, never missed a day of work, didn't like to spend. Um, and so I remember, and I talked to my mom about this now, which is funny because I think as my psychology of money has changed, my money psychology has changed over the
Yeah.
last 5-6 years. I think
Yeah.
theirs has changed a lot because I talk to them a lot about it, and I think
Mm.
that they see money differently now than they
Interesting.
used
Yeah.
to. But it's funny because I remember being a kid and going shopping with my mom and having to kind of like fib or lie to my dad about what stuff I had in my
Mm.
closet that was new versus old, and how much we spent and how much we bought. And so I never
Yeah.
really understood, like, you know the the money between, like, how they handled it, because they didn't talk to us about it, me and my brother. It was just kind of like they didn't really talk about finance. All I knew was my dad never spent, my mom did spend, and sometimes we hid that.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, when I
But but but
started,
but I thought you were Catholic though. I thought you weren't supposed to tell lies, and I thought you weren't supposed to.
yeah, yeah, all of that, it was like a white lie. But then what I want to add is that they always gave to the church, always,
Interesting.
even when money was tight. They always gave to the church. We always went to church on Sunday. They always tithe. They always gave a percent of their income, which I always respected. And even now, like as an adult, like I think that's so cool that, they prioritize. I know exactly what they prioritize. Me and my brother both went to a Catholic school, like I said, in a
Yeah.
Catholic high school, and each of our schools cost 8,000 a year each. And we were only 2 grades apart, so there was 2 years where that overlapped, and they were paying 16,000 a year, and then 8,000 on the front end, and then 8,000 on the back end. And they prioritized education and sports and a two-parent household and working
Yeah.
hard and religion and God. And that's what really matters to me. As I
Interesting.
got older, I just realized that I never talked about money with them and I didn't know anything about it. And I went from being a college athlete to my being 22 years old working in corporate America. My first salary was 56,000, 55,000 out of school. It's the first time in my life I ever had money to spend.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Right.
I didn't
Yeah.
know what to do with it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. How did it sounds like you had slash have a pretty good relationship with your parents
Oh,
and
yeah.
like respect the the way you grew up. Would that be
Yeah.
accurate?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up in a very religious household as well, Christian, and I have a great relationship with both my parents. I have 7 siblings.
Wow.
Well, 6 young. One of my older brother passed away, but 6 living. So there's 7 of us now, and same thing, like hard work, church every Sunday. Grew up on a farm, all the things in the church, and money was that off the table. Like we just always struggled with money, right? Like that was just always the determining factor. Um, how do you like? What was life like growing up? Let's start there. What was life like growing up on like I mean, I know you mentioned sports and stuff, but
Mhm.
like, yeah, what did that look like? And what were the values I think that were instilled in you that shaped who you are now?
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, my parents both worked, but my mom was a school nurse. So she worked in a school system, and so she had off every summer. So
Mm,
she at 3 o'clock every day when she got off work, she would be home, and when I got off the bus, she was home every day.
mm,
And she was home in the summers, and my dad worked a regular 9 to 5, and he delivered newspapers as for extra income. So from like 3 a.m. to 6 or 7 a.m., he delivered papers, and then he went to a full time like 8 to 5, 9 to 5 job.
mm.
Obviously, nothing was remote back then, so he was gone most of the time,
Yeah.
during the
Yeah.
week. Super present on the weekends. And me and my brother, it was what I think is typical when you live in a middle class family. You live in a neighborhood. We had
Yep.
kids that were both my age and his age, and we would go out, if we weren't at school or whatever. We would go outside first thing in the morning, and we would be outside all day long. Like we were
Yeah.
outside, we were playing, we were riding bikes, we were, fun. I forget, pogo sticking. We were on the
Yeah.
trampoline. We played hockey. We played football. We played
Yeah.
basketball. We played baseball. Like we played everything. And that's what like I really remember from my childhood is like
Yeah.
we were outside playing sports as a family. The prerequisite to being outside playing sports was that as soon as we got off the bus and we came in the house, the very first thing we had to do was sit down at the kitchen table and do our homework. Like
Mm.
that was the rule. So we would come home, we would sit down, we would do our homework, and then we would be outside. Obviously, we didn't live that way in high school. They weren't
Yeah.
strict
Yeah.
or anything like that, and that changed. But I'm talking,
Yeah.
earlier on in elementary and things like
Yeah.
that. And then they prioritized family. So we were very close with my grandparents, both my mom's mom and dad. And my grandfather passed away when I was in the 8th grade. And then on the other side, my grandma and grandfather were divorced, and he passed away when I was in the 6th grade. And today, both of my grandmas are still living. So they're both in their 80s. They're both still living. They're both a huge part of my life.
Amazing.
We're super close, and they prioritize that. So we took one vacation a year. We spent time with family. We played
Yeah.
outside, and we lived like what I would say normal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I get what you say normal. Like, yeah, that's I think a lot of people can probably relate with that. But like,
Yeah,
w- it sounds like a big driving factor of money for you and figuring out money is family and what you can do with it in the future for family. Would that be accurate?
absolutely. And one thing I want to mention, Josh, is like my grand my I said they're both in their 80s. One of my grandma's 83, the other one's like 78, so she's knocking on 80.
Yeah. Mhm.
My grandma that's 78, she worked up until she was 73, and she worked at McDonald's until she was 73. My
Crazy.
grandma had my dad when she was 16, and she was, married and then divorced, and then he passed away, and she was a single mom, and
Yeah.
she got a GED. She never went to college.
Yeah.
She never had money, and I think a lot of what I feel now is seeing them in
Mm.
retirement now, and me seeing like if I don't set myself up, I'm going to struggle in retirement,
Yeah.
and I don't think anybody wants to work their whole life to get to mid 60s or 70s and retire and then struggle through
Yep.
retirement. And
Yep.
now, I know my parents are in a place, and me and my wife are in a place, and my brother does well, and to help them so they don't go without
Yeah.
anything. It's not like that. It's not like we're,
Yeah.
letting them fend for themselves or anything
Yeah.
like
No,
that.
I
That's
get
not.
it. Yeah.
But
No, but that's good. Yeah.
it's just that I saw growing up of lack,
Yeah.
lack of money, that I always just felt whenever it's up to me, I won't allow that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
But I think that's really I think that's good in many ways. Like one of the things that, I'm in the entrepreneur space and I'm big in the online space, right? So online, services, coaching, funnels, all that education. And I think a lot of things that people say a lot is they're like, I want to make an impact and income. It's always impact and income, right? And
Mhm.
I'm like, that's great. And like, I think people should want to make a difference in other people's lives and all that or whatever. But also, if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't take responsibility for your own life, if you can't get your own finances in order, right? Like, you're not going to make any form of impact. And I think that a lot of people, they justify their way out. At least I've seen, like, they justify their way out of their taking care of their finances in the name of some other excuse, right?
Yes.
And so, like, for you to be able to have a firsthand experience of not only seeing it, but then also being able to put yourself in a position to help out with that, right? Is, I don't think a lot, and maybe I could be wrong, but I don't think as many people, I don't think that many people actually get to do that and have that unique experience and perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. And, I think that's one of the big pieces of money psychology that, that I feel like a lot of people
Yeah.
use the excuse that, for why they aren't rich because they associate being rich as a negative. So if they can get into their
Yeah.
mind that being rich is wrong or being rich is negative, then that lets them, you know, tell themselves that it's okay that I'm not rich. It's okay that I don't have a lot of money because those people did something negatively to get
Bad.
it
Yeah.
or went about it the wrong way or they scammed or they, whatever those negative
Yeah.
money, connotations that people have. But I think it's easier to rationalize why you aren't rich if you think being rich is bad. Whereas, like,
Yeah.
if you just think of money in general as a tool and nothing else, it has
Yeah.
no good properties, it has
Yep.
no bad
Yep.
properties, it's not good or evil. It's
Yep.
just a tool. What
Yeah.
you do with it is what makes it positive or negative. If you
Yeah.
get rich and you scam people and you use all your money on drugs and alcohol and whatever else,
Yeah.
that is not good. If you
Yeah.
get rich the right way by working hard,
Yeah.
investing and saving and buying assets, and you use that money to do good in the world and help people and help your family and set your family up for a better future and set your kids up and your grandkids, that's not wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an interesting thing I've learned about people in general is how they think about that.
Okay, so how did you? Because now you're like, now you're a Twitter influencer and you're buying assets and you're getting rich, right? Like, how did you overcome? Like, how did you decide or come to believe and realize that being rich is not bad, right? And like that's it can be a good thing, right? Like it's not good. Money's not good or bad, but like that being rich isn't bad. How did you? Let's start with the Twitter thing. How did you find Twitter and how did you get it? How did you start there?
Yeah, I mean, I started the Twitter account that I use today in 2011. I started it when I was just starting out in college as an athlete, and I made it just to like post about basketball and make friends and hang out, talk to my friends on there. Then I
Yeah.
didn't use it at all, from like
Yeah.
2015 till 2020, I didn't really use it. And in 2020, I just got back on there and I started following people that like were doing well financially because I've always had this mindset my entire life, and I have so many stories to back this up. Like, I have always believed that if somebody else can do it, why can't I?
Yep.
Like,
100%.
I've always felt that way. Going back as far as like the game Dance Dance Revolution, like a friend of mine was really good at it. And I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like, why am I not as good as her? And it was
Yeah.
because I didn't play as much. I didn't practice
Yeah.
as much. I didn't put in as much time. When I did, I became really good at it. Like, I looked in a Guinness Book of World Records one time and found out the pogo sticking world record and was like, if they can pogo stick like that, so can I. And I've always just had that mentality when it came to basketball. Like, people that were all Americans, like, why can't I
Yeah.
be an all American? What are they doing that I need to start doing to become an all American? And then I
Yeah.
did those things and became that.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing goes with finance. It's like, find people that are doing and accomplishing what you want to do and accomplish and do what they do. If
Yeah.
you find out that the rich people are increasing their income and they are reading books and they are watching podcasts and they are starting businesses and they are buying real estate and they're buying stocks and they're being patient and they're not selling every time the market has a tiny downturn,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you need to do those things. Like, that's
Yeah.
exactly what you need to do. And so I think Twitter, like going on Twitter, accelerated the speed at which I found people doing what I want to do because I was able
Mm.
to network with them. So I
Interesting.
quickly found people like that person I think I'm pretty decent at figuring out like who's authentic and transparent and who's
Yeah.
full of crap. I would
Yeah.
like to think that. And so I found a group of people that like I really respected, that I thought
Yeah.
were being honest. And I just had to figure out like what they were doing that I wasn't, and then implement that into my life. And that's what I did.
Interesting. And then like, was it like a group you joined or just like people you decided to follow on Twitter?
Yeah, just people I
Yeah.
followed. And no, I haven't really been in any groups or anything. I think like 4 years ago, I joined like a trading community to like think I was going to be a day trader or something like that. Lost a bunch of money and
We
gave
all
up.
did at one point. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But other than
Um,
that, no.
Interesting. And now, like, did you just grow on Twitter by accident? Or like, was there some intentionality behind that?
I mean, in August, I remember it like it was kind of pretty much just yesterday. It was only a few months ago, but
Yeah.
last August, I, had gone through paying off $100,000 in consumer debt. I
Yeah.
had $100,000 already invested in the stock market at this point. I had 3 properties and we were working on our fourth. And I just started like talking to my wife about it and just saying like, there's people on the internet that are posting content that I don't feel have half as much of experience as I have, that are
It's
growing their
wild.
followings. Yeah. And they're able to grow their following and they're able to like get brand deals and they're getting paid to post. And like, I just looked at her one day and again, here we go. Like, why can't I? It was
Yeah.
just kind of like, I have the knowledge, I have the experience, I've done a lot of dumb stuff, I've figured it out,
Yeah.
I've, made mistakes and become better for them. And I feel like I have a message that somebody might be able to learn from or somebody might
Yeah.
need to hear. And I just revived this old Twitter account. And I remember I posted and I just said, like, I'm just going to start posting about the things that I'm passionate about, which is personal finance, real estate,
Yep.
mindset, positive mindset, and dogs, which I never ever post about my dogs. So it's so funny that I thought I was going to. And then I just started.
How many dogs do you have?
2.
2 dogs. There.
And I love them. They're amazing. And I just started. So then I just was like, I'm going to make one post today and I'm really going to put a lot of intentionality and thought into my message every single day. And I started out and I started posting and my post got 2 likes, literally, one from my wife and one from my mom. Like, that's it. And
Yeah, let's go.
yeah. And every day, like I would
Yeah.
post and both of them would like it. And I'm like, all right, cool. Two likes, like, and I just started engaging with people and talking to
Yeah.
people and people found me and it just started growing from there.
Yeah, you have had some that have popped off here and there. Like I see them, I'm like, all right, let's go. I'm a fan. I enjoy listening, or I enjoy reading your stuff.
Thank you.
And I'm curious. I kind of want to get into and ask about your investing, like your personal investing philosophy.
Mhm.
And if you want to justify it or kind of give context, great. But I just want to understand it, because like I said, a lot of your stuff is so spot on, and a couple of things I'm like, but why though, right? Like for example, when you talked about like buying a whole life insurance policy at 22, right?
Yeah.
With independence, whatever. I'm like, okay, but like, how those can be really good. Like I have one and I love it, right? Like but it's not my only vehicle. It wasn't. So like, I'm just curious in general, and we'll talk about the whole life thing in a second. But like in general, what's your philosophy? How do you make investing decisions with money?
Yeah. So what I'll say is that like I'm the type of person that learns by doing. I
Yeah,
don't
same.
learn
Yep.
very well by like other people's mistakes. Like if somebody says, "Don't do this," I'm going to say like, "Let me give it a go myself."
Yep.
And that's
That was me.
exactly
That was me with crypto and like meme coins and like things like
yeah.
that, like NFTs and all that. Everyone's like, "Don't do it." I'm like, definitely doing it, right? Just
Exactly.
because, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the more people
Yeah.
tell you not to, like the more you're like, let me see if I can do it,
Yep.
like
Yep.
just
Yep.
thinking for
Yep.
some reason that you should be able to.
Yes. Yep.
Anyway, I started out like, so my investing philosophy, like it started back in 2015. I was working for this company, same company I'm with now. It's been 9 years. Started out there in the 401k. I got a 5% match. So I just put 5% in, got my match, and just, it's pretty much like it's through Fidelity, Vanguard funds, like a mix of large cap, mid cap growth, some international, whatever. It's a good mix of it, like
Yep.
aggressive growth,
Yep.
And then like a year after that, I started a Roth IRA and didn't max it out at first, just was putting money in here and in there, what I could afford. And then whenever I started like in the stock market, like dabbling, I started
Yeah.
out individually trading stocks and penny stocks and buying options, day trading, like all this stuff. It was asinine
Yeah.
and lost money, obviously. And I started realizing, like, all right, the indices, like the index funds and the ETFs, like they're consistently returning 8, 10, 12% sometimes a year. And I'm losing money left and right when I could have just bought the S&P 500 and chilled and I would have been up money right now, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to do all this dumb stuff.
Yeah.
And so I pretty much just learned quickly that that was not the right path that I should be going. And I should be putting my money into things that are, I'm not going to say guaranteed, but have a really, really great chance of being
Yeah.
successful long term. And so I just completely changed up my philosophy. We sold our brokerage account when we were paying off debt. We threw all of
Oh,
it
wow.
towards debt.
Nice.
And then we just went strictly index funds and ETFs, like broad market, total stock market funds, international funds. Um, like I think I own three things. Like I just am very consistent with just buying those three things every single
Which
month.
is what?
VTI or VT Saks, VXUS or VTIAX, the index version. And I have small exposure to SCHD dividends, and then I buy Bitcoin. And that's it.
Yes.
Like those, I just do like, in my mind, Bitcoin is my growth, my speculative play that I actually fully believe in. And
Yeah.
then the broad market funds return 8 to 10%. I have a very small exposure to international because historically they've done terrible. And I have a small exposure to SHID for a dividend. That my strategy is that I just want to put a little bit in at a time. So when I get to the point that I'm 60, I have a nice dividend, snowball rolling, but
Yeah.
it's not something I prioritize. I put a very small amount into it. And yeah, I just every week I just buy stocks and I'd wait.
Yeah. And I think that's the hardest thing to do for a lot of people is the wait part, right? Because it's like, what do you mean I just wait? What do I do? It's like nothing. You just wait, right?
Yes.
Um, where does the, I guess, is the end goal for you just like this is retirement? That's what this is building towards for you?
No, I mean, well, yes, I would say for sure, but I would also say that like um I don't foresee us like working W2s, a long time. I think like
Mm,
based off of how much we invest now, like, I can't see my wife working past 5 years from now. And,
yeah.
I could probably retire early in 10 years because we kind of parlay like what we put into the stock market with rentals as well. So,
I was just gonna say where does that fit in? Yeah.
yeah, so we have four properties, one we live in, three that are investment properties. And our play or our strategy there is like we buy in Western Pennsylvania, which is a very affordable market.
Yep.
And the houses don't really appreciate like other places like Denver and, Texas and California. Like they don't appreciate like that, but they're much easier to cash flow
Yep.
because they're a lot less expensive and rent
Yep.
is still like decently high.
Yep.
So our properties cash flow, we use that money every month to invest. So like the cash flow we make, we invest, and we invest the money from our jobs, and we
Yep.
just don't live like super like glamorously, I'll say, but like
Yep.
we also do things that we enjoy. Like I posted recently, we went to the women's national
I
championship
saw
on
that.
Sunday, and we were, yeah, I mean,
Was that a
we
blast?
we had an absolute blast. We had a
Yeah.
time. It was fantastic. And I mean, we had great seats and we splurged on them and we
Yeah.
paid great, it wasn't cheap, I'll say that. And
Yeah. Yeah.
we enjoyed ourselves, so it's
Yep.
not that we don't spend money. It's just
Yep.
we would rather do that than drive a Audi, I
Yeah.
guess.
What do you drive?
We share a car, and it's a paid off 2017 Honda Accord.
Look at that. Well done. Well
Yeah,
done.
simple.
So the goal is retirement, but also with the secondary thing of like when you say your wife probably not after 5 years, you 10 years, is it okay? Next thing is like that's early retirement. We're going to go enjoy life. Is it I'm going to go start a business? Is it going to,
Yeah.
like what does that look like?
Yeah, for sure. Like I think the main thing is like having a family, and I want her to be able to stay home and raise kids and not have to worry about going to a job. Like that's primary, I think.
Mm,
Secondary, I think, traveling. We both really want to travel and see the world, and there's things we want to go do, but at the same time, I'm not the type of person that can like I drive I don't want to say self-worth necessarily, but like a lot of my purpose comes from working, like
Yeah.
making money. I
Yes.
enjoy making money.
Yes.
I've never had a problem making money. Like you said, like going out and getting money when you need it, like that's never been my problem. I've
Yeah.
always been able to find a way to get money,
Yep.
and I enjoy that. So
Yeah.
I don't think there's any capacity where like I just sit on the couch and I'm
Yeah.
retired. That's not me.
Yeah.
But I would like to do something that like I'm more passionate about. Like I would love to like coach people in some way, whether it's like investing or paying off debt or real estate. It's just I think that field can sometimes get a bad rap, especially like on social
I'm
media
in
with
it.
people. Yeah,
Yeah.
like people like
Yep.
selling courses and like
Yep.
selling that kind of thing. I think it's a bad rap. So I'm just not sure like what is the right thing for me and what I want to do. But I
Yeah.
think that there's people that I can help. And I
Yeah.
think that there's people that, can change their financial story around.
Yeah. Well, but I want to give you big props on that too. Like I'm a product of the coaching industry, right? I am a believer in it. I have spent $400,000 of my own money on coaches, and
Wow.
I came from nothing, right? Like, so like I was the one that was like, when people say invest in yourself, like I'm the one that when my brother died and my life was wrecked or whatever, and I lost my business and lost everything, I had 8 grand left to my name, and I was like, I know I need a coach, and she was 60 grand and I had 8, and I was like, cool, I'll make the
Wow.
first payment, let's figure this out, right? So
Wow. That's awesome.
like that type of, like, I bet on me 100% of the time. I think the single biggest problem with the coaching industry is people either don't do things at all and think they can coach it, or they do things once and they think they can coach it. And it's like, no, coach it. Anybody can coach once they've done it and like lived it, done it, know it, understand it, right? And so I give you mad props to say, like, you're doing it to where it's not like you bought 1 or 2 properties and you're like, I'm gonna launch a course on it, right? Like, you're like, no,
No.
let me actually retire, right? Like, let me actually go through all of this. And like, I think that as someone who has lived and breathed in the online education and service industry for the last 7 years of my life, you will avoid 98% of the problems and the bad rep that comes with everything if you do it the way that you're doing it, because that's where the bad rep comes from. Does that make sense?
100%. And other people have told me that too. Other people that I've, been on their podcasts and stuff, they're like documenting your journey from like where you
Yeah.
are now to, becoming a millionaire, becoming successful and
Yeah.
whatever people think is successful to them.
Right.
Leaving your job and starting a business, and those like showing people the steps of you doing it is going to be so much about building rapport. And down
Yep.
the line, if you launch a coaching or consulting or something, people are going
Yep.
to see like you didn't just pop up
Yeah.
coaching and consulting. Like you showed the
Yep.
process for years and years and
Yep.
years, and now you're reputable. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I want to mention something.
Yep.
That you hit on. A couple years ago, I hired a coach as well, and I paid $5,000 to work with them, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. And I won't say I dropped 60 grand on a
Yeah.
coach,
Yeah. 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 Most
but
people
for
don't and
me,
shouldn't, right?
yeah, but
Yeah. I,
I learned so much during that time, and I
yeah.
feel like it elevated me to the next level because you get access to that person, and what you're buying is all of the time and hours and knowledge that they've gained. They're going to
Yep.
boil it down for you and give it to you on a platter in a much
Yep.
shorter amount of time. So people don't have to pay for coaches. They're not
Yep.
mandatory, but it might take you 10 years to learn and get from start to finish of what this person's able to teach you over the course of 6 months
Yep.
or something, because they're going to put it into something that you can, get you to the point. What is the bottom line much quicker than you're going to be able to get to on your own.
Yes.
And the other thing I want to mention is like, I think the people that are the most successful didn't just have an easy path. Like they didn't just
Yep.
it wasn't just super easy all along, and then all of a sudden they wake up and they're successful and
Yep.
whatever.
Very rarely. Yeah.
Like the people that I know that have been successful had to overcome some serious things that
Yep.
a lot of people would have folded
Yep.
and crawled into a hole and just used that as an excuse. And that's why I say when you mention your brother,
Yep.
like it sounds like you had to overcome something that was really horrible.
Yeah. A few
And
things.
I had a very similar thing. Like in 2017, me and my wife and my family, we were at the Route 91 Harvest Fest concert when the shooting happened in Vegas.
Wow. That's
And
crazy.
it was one of the craziest things in my life. And for like, a year and a half after that, I was not in a good place,
Yeah.
understandably.
Yeah.
But that was a big catalyst in my life and made me such a better person today, because I realized that you can go to a concert, you can go to a grocery store, you can go to
Yeah.
a theater and not come home. Like
Yeah.
you can just set out to have a normal day with people that you
Yeah.
love, and that be the end of it.
Yeah.
And so I think that really set into perspective for me that this life is so short and we only
Yeah.
get one chance to do this.
Yeah.
And why are you going to live a life that you are not happy with and
Yeah.
not take risks when, the alternative is just, you know, living an unfulfilled life that you're not happy with and it's your only one.
Yeah.
And so I think that just changed everything. Like, I don't want to go to a job I hate. I don't want to be in
Yeah.
debt. I don't want to not have options. Like, I want to get
Yeah.
my money right and
Yeah.
give myself options to live the way I want to live.
Yeah. That's really powerful. Very, very, very good. And that's crazy that you were there. I mean, yeah. Um, Going back to the investing philosophy thing. So
Yeah.
it sounds like the real estate is for cash flow, and I assume you use debt, like leverage for that, right? Or are those all paid off?
No, they're not all paid off. One of them
Yeah.
is paid for cash. Three of them have debt. Two of them, one was bought 2020, one was bought 2021, 3%, and then one was bought in
Oh,
November.
yes.
So that like
Yeah.
really low debt is I'm totally okay with. The one we bought in
Yeah.
November is like 7.5%, and I'm not really okay with that one. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So, but and then your stocks and your investments in the market there, those, I mean, it's growth, it's long term. It's like you're betting on, I mean, to put it in Warren Buffett terms, you're betting on America, right?
yep,
In there, and you're saying, hey, this, like, I'm in the markets for the long term, and I'm gonna control cash flow and leverage debt, here. And then you have your speculative
exactly.
play, which is Bitcoin. Yes.
Exactly.
And then your philosophy of it is you take the income that you have, you live below your means and expenses, and you optimize for, maxing out as much as you possibly can to get to a point where then you have options. Yes?
Exactly.
Okay. So my philosophy and this is me as an entrepreneur, right? So like very different in the sense of like you're a 9 to 5. I don't think my philosophy, well, of course, I think my philosophy is the best, of course, duh. But like I don't think my philosophy is for everyone, right? My philosophy has been, are you familiar with Alex Ramosi?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So like Alex Ramosi, Russell Brunson, like that world is like, kind of my world. I was watching a video about him one time, which is like, there's a couple different ways to get rich. And one of them is you have your income and you invest it for the future. And then the other one is you invest in you and you just make so much money, right? That like you just know how to print it and you never have a money issue ever, right?
Yes.
And I like, to me, my wealth coach, his name's Brad. He's very much in the philosophy of long term. He doesn't do the stock market. He's all real estate,
Okay.
whole life, all that stuff. I've learned a tremendous amount of money with him, but he's, kind of the long term piece. But I remember telling him, I'm like, I don't understand why someone would wait 30 or 40 years to be able to be in a good position when they could just go figure out how to make a buttload of money in 5 years, right? And then just put it in there. And he's like, well, not everybody has that philosophy, Josh. And I'm like, I get it.
Hmm.
But like that concept of increasing your income,
Hmm.
where I think that I have spent a tremendous amount of my own, like I said, I've spent a lot of money on coaches, a stupid amount of money on coaches, right? Has been to like in my personal life as far as identity and knowing who I am and my marriage and things like that. And then also just the increased income game, right?
Hmm.
So how much, like in the 9 to 5 world, I'm asking this from a genuine place of understanding because I don't hang out with a lot of people like you and you're cool. Like I respect you and I'm like, cool, you have a good money mindset. Like you go, cool, got it, right?
Uh-huh.
So like, what's the mentality for you that says, okay, you know what? I'm going to work my 9 to 5. I make good money with it. Great. This is the route that I'm choosing to, knowing that in 10 or 15 years or like whatever, for sure by the time you're 60, but like 10 or 15 years, I'll have enough money. We're good. Why do you choose that route versus just figuring out how to make buttloads of money faster, right? Is it
Yeah.
is it a money thing? Is it you don't want to be an entrepreneur? Is it like yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that for every person, for every Alex Hormozy, and for every Josh Forti, there's 50 that were extremely unsuccessful.
Mm,
And what I would say is I love stability. Like the
okay.
older I get, and I'm not old by any means, but like the
Yeah.
older I
We're the
get,
same age. I hope we're not old.
yeah, no, we're
Yeah.
not at all. We have
Yeah.
so much time. But
Yeah.
the older I get, I love stability, like in my friendships and in my family
Yeah.
and in my relationship, like And I love knowing that I'm getting a paycheck every other Friday and I know how
Yeah.
much it's going to be. I'm on salary and I know how much I'm getting paid. But I
Yeah.
will say that the other side of that is that I didn't just start out at $55,000 and say like I'm going to just parlay this 55,000 into
Yeah.
wealth. I have been promoted 5 times in 9 years. I'm working on a promotion right now. So I
Mm.
guess you could say I'm climbing the corporate ladder, which is horrible. I hate saying
Yeah.
it. But I've always been a go-getter, if you will, in the corporate world. So I
Yeah.
started out
Okay.
handling claims, and then I started out managing, and then I went to managing people that handle claims. Then I went to the tech back end side of product management, and now I'm working to become a director of product management. And
Mm.
there is a lot of money to be made as a director of product in
Yeah.
the insurance world.
Yeah.
And what is the risk versus reward? Could I make $150,000 in the insurance industry and know how much I'm going to get every other week and have a pretty stable income? Obviously, I can get laid off.
Yeah.
But the company that I work for, and I'm not going to say what that is, I never
Yeah. Yeah.
have on
No. No,
anything,
you're good. Yeah. Yeah.
but they were founded in the 1800s. So they have been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And they have a very good reputation of being
Yeah.
a fiscally conservative company.
Yeah.
When 2020 happened, we did not make a single layoff.
Wow. It's awesome.
I have never met somebody, and I've been there 9 years. I don't know a single person that I've ever worked with that has been laid off.
Yeah.
So is this a sure thing? Of course not.
Yeah. But
I could be
nothing
fired.
is. Yeah.
I could be
Yeah.
laid off. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But the odds of that happening in the position that I'm in at the company that I'm in, I've seen have been very low over the course of the last decade.
Yeah.
So does it make sense for me to make money
Yeah.
and have something stable, or does it make
Yeah.
sense to take a bet on myself,
Yeah.
maybe have can increase the ceiling that I can make more
Yeah.
money, obviously,
Yeah.
but there's also like you could go 5 years starting your own business and not make a penny.
No, I
So
100%. Yeah.
so for me, it's what's going to get me there the quickest. 5 years of unknown,
Yeah.
learning and coaches and paying and maybe not making money and the stress that comes along with that, or 5 years
Yeah.
of 100, 200,000, 250. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we are
Yeah.
also a dual income household. My wife does very well.
Yep.
We don't have kids, so it's just,
Yeah.
those are the kind of things that I weigh
Yeah.
of like what makes sense to get me to what I
Yeah.
want and the guaranteed way, I guess.
Yeah. And do you, I mean, I take it that you enjoy your work. You like what you do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Because I
hate
think,
it.
yeah. Okay. Okay. Because like, I think, for me, I grew up, well, first off, I grew up thinking that the only way to get rich was entrepreneurship, right? Like if that was it. And then I was very wrong on that. LOL. But I just wanted to be free, right? Like that was
Yep.
my whole thing is freedom, 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 right? Like don't tell me what to do. I want to be my own boss, right? And so like for me, I just thought if somebody had a boss or if somebody had anyone that could tell them what to do, that wasn't freedom.
Mhm.
And as I've grown and as I've, matured and learned about, people, I'm like, freedom in any capacity requires structure, right?
Yes.
And so I think if you can choose your structure and you can find freedom within that structure, then if you have something that works for you in there, you can have the level of freedom to enjoy life and optimize for what you want, versus, not, right? And so it sounds like for you that the job that you have and the lifestyle that you have or whatever, while it's not like you said, you're not like massively glamorous and showing off everything, whatever. Like
No.
you enjoy it, you feel fulfilled in it, and like you're happy with the life that you're living. Is that accurate?
100%.
Okay, awesome.
100%.
So then here's like, if I were to building up to like the thing where I'm like, here's my question for you of all of this is, how did you choose the stock market? Because when you were like on Twitter, you're like, you got around and people are buying assets and, like investing in stocks. I'm like, yes. And also a lot of other things, right? Like there's a lot of ways to make money. There's a lot
Yeah.
of ways to invest. There's a lot. So for you, I know that, real estate's part of it. And I know like it's a diversified portfolio, if you will. You got stocks, you got real estate, you got some Bitcoin, right?
Yep.
Why do you feel like stocks are a good bet? Like, how did you, like, help me just understand the decision making? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just,
Yeah.
how did you ultimately decide that that was the right one?
I'll be completely honest with you. I thought at the beginning that was the only one. So I
Okay.
started out investing in 2015. I was 22 years old when I first started putting money into the stock market, and I didn't know there was any other way. I listened to podcasts and I read books, and I didn't know that at that point, like I had no idea what Bitcoin was. I didn't own real estate. I didn't
Yeah.
have any, didn't expect to own real estate. The only thing that I knew was stocks. So I would say I defaulted to that unknowingly
Yeah.
because I had absolutely no idea what else to do. I knew
Yeah.
I had to use my income to um, buy assets and not liabilities.
Yeah.
But that was what I thought was the only option. And
Yeah.
now when I take a step back and I'm like, okay, I can buy land, I can buy businesses, I could
Yeah.
start businesses, I can
Yeah.
buy real estate, I can buy commercial real estate, I can buy crypto, I can all of these things that are available to me. Um, there's a part of me now that I feel like is lazy in a sense,
Yeah.
where
I get it.
the stock market has historically done amazing. It is something that I'm willing to bet on. I'm
Yep.
willing to say over the last 100 years, 150 years, whatever, whatever time frame you
Yep.
want to look at.
Yep.
The stock market has done well. It's
Yep.
not tenants. The tenants aren't calling me. I don't have to screen tenants. I don't have to put in a new shower. I don't have to unclog a toilet. I don't have
Yep.
to fix the stove. Like now that I have both, the stock market is the lazy way, if you
Yep.
will, and the other ones are harder. Starting businesses, buying businesses, running real estate business, all of that is harder because it takes time.
Yep.
Like the stock market takes time up front to learn what you're going to buy. Once you know what
Yep.
you're going to buy, it takes no time. You automate
Yep.
it, it comes out of your account automatically. You buy the stocks. It doesn't take any thought or time.
Yeah.
Everything else takes time.
Well, I
And
mean, like you could find, I mean, you could partner on syndicate deals, or you could, like
yes,
you could find things where
syndicate.
you just stick your money in and it just work.
Yes.
But that makes sense. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
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 Real estate syndication is actually attractive to me because of that. I actually
Yeah.
didn't, I only learned about it a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But what's crazy is I think I'm going through a crisis because like the more I learn about Bitcoin, the more I wonder why I own anything else. So
Okay. That's where my question's going, because here's the thing. I own nothing but Bitcoin. I have the only other thing that I own but Bitcoin. I mean, I have my business, which like our business does great, right? So
yeah,
like from a financial standpoint, I don't worry about bills or anything of that because of the business, right? But from an investing standpoint, right? Like debt with real estate, cash flowing properties, single families, or whatever, I'm down to 2, right? And the only reason I hold the 2 is because the people I'm in partnership with them, I'm like, oh, I kind of like them, and I don't want, like, I feel like if I left them, they'd be bad, right? But
yeah,
like, so I found Bitcoin, and I like at first I thought it was like, oh, quick, get rich, whatever, cool. And I studied it, bought some, whatever. And then I learned about it, and I'm like, holy shit. Like what?
that's
Like,
exactly where I'm at. Like that's where I'm at. I started like studying it, researching it in November. So it's been
yeah.
like 6 months that
Okay.
I've
So
just
you're
like
new.
been
Okay.
down this
Okay. Yeah.
rabbit hole. And to me, like the monetary system, the fiat system, um, it's honestly a joke. Like they're never going to stop printing. The value of the dollar is never going to stop going down. They can't stop printing. There's no option but to print
Yes.
because of
Yeah.
the fiscal policy that we've had for however many years. And obviously a lot about understanding Bitcoin goes into understanding money in general and
Right.
going off the gold standard and understanding that like why am I gonna
It's all a
go
lie.
yes, why am I gonna go sit at a job for 8 hours a day to get these dollars when the government's just gonna print some and give it to every other country and every other anything anytime they need it? It's like
Yeah.
it makes me feel silly for like actually doing what I do to get these dollars that they can print at any
Yeah.
time.
So what would it take? Like, cause I had my moment, right? Like, I mean, like, cause like me, I had my cycle of, I made a bunch of money in business relatively young. And then I was an idiot and lost it all because, that's what you do when you make money when you're young. And then you lose it all. And then I started to make it back, and I was like, well, I don't want to lose it. So then I went and got wisdom from wise people, and they were like, cool, like secure with whole life. I don't think whole life insurance, by the way, is an investment. I think it's a insurance. It's a protection mechanism, right? So I
Mhm.
put it in there, and then I borrow against it. I buy real estate. I buy real estate with debt, and then that spends for inflation. And I mean, I went down that path, raising money and doing the whole thing and all that, and running the business. And then I'm like, well, this is stupid. I'm just going to go make money, and I'll just give it to somebody else. And then I found Bitcoin, and I'm like I vividly remember, my wife thinks I'm insane, right? But like
Mine
now
too.
she gets it, right? Like I've been with it enough, but I vividly remember the moment where I was like, nothing else makes sense. And I'm like, if I actually believe that nothing else makes sense, then I better put my money where my mouth is. And I got rid of all of it. Like I have like 10 grand in my checking account. Like that's it. Like everything else is in Bitcoin,
Saving in
right?
Bitcoin.
Like investing, saving, all of it, right? If it's not in the business, it is in Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, if I'm wrong, I am toast. But like, I'm not. And Bitcoin. So like, what would it take? What would it take for you to have the moment of, whether it's Bitcoin or something else, for you to stop in the stock market or just stop your current mechanism of investing right now and shift gears? Is there something that would cause that?
Yeah, so good question. It's funny you say that because I don't know if you know, I don't even know how to really pronounce his name and I don't want to butcher it. But his first name's Rajat, Rajat, and his
Oh,
last name,
on Twitter or whatever. He's the guy
yes.
that made the big. Yeah, I know who you're talking
And
about. Yep.
he's all about Bitcoin,
Yep. Yep.
and I was talking to him today and had mentioned that I wrote a post that I plan on posting soon about how it doesn't make sense for me to buy real estate anymore. And it's a very weird thing. And it's hard for me to even admit that because I have talked so much about, buying real estate and then, you know, cash flowing real estate and appreciation and equity and,
Tax
all of those
benefits,
things,
all things. Yep.
and now I'm at the point where somebody approached me who is in their 60s who is getting ready to sell their real estate and they want to know if I would potentially be interested in buying some of their portfolio. And so they're interested in selling 3 properties, 2 of which have tenants and 1 that's empty, and 2 of which that have tenants are cash flowing. And he's willing and interested in doing seller financing.
Yeah.
And so I've run the numbers and I've come to the conclusion that I think all 3 of them can cash flow. I think they can cash flow for a couple to a few $100s a month. And
Yeah.
in my mind, I can't stop thinking about why would I take on the debt, take on the headaches of tenants, take on properties that are going to need updates and renovations for a couple $100s a month when I could just make more money, doing something else or like at my job or getting promoted or something, and just use that to buy Bitcoin and stocks that aren't going to require any of that. It's not going to require debt and it's not going to require tenants and it's not. And I'm at this crossroads is
Yeah.
basically what I'm getting at where,
Yeah.
my real estate brings me more money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can use that
Yeah.
money that I get from real estate to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And the other side of it is like, I also feel like an idiot that I've not learned about it up until now, since it's been the best performing asset for 8 out of the last 11 years. And I'm like, have I been living under a rock?
Yeah.
There's that as well, where I'm like, oh, wow, like I'm buying and it's 70,000. And if I would have just known this 5 years
like,
ago, I could have bought.
Like you understand though that like
It's always
70,000,
going up.
like it's so cheap.
It's
Like
still so cheap. And like because I listen to the Simply Bitcoin podcast, I listen to We Study Billionaires, I listen to all of those where they talk about Bitcoin
Yeah.
and like the reality is that there's like, my numbers will be wrong, but you'll get the point.
Yeah.
There's like 60 million millionaires in the world and there's 21
Yeah.
million Bitcoin. And even if every millionaire decided that they just wanted to have one coin, there wouldn't be enough.
But and not only that though, but then people forget like it's like 80 something % of all Bitcoin has not moved in the last 2 years. So there's
Right.
only $2 million or 2 million available Bitcoin to buy. Only
Right.
2 million available. And you have
Right.
BlackRock buying 10,000 a day. And it's like, I talked to Brad about this because he's my wealth guy. And he like for the longest time was like, Bitcoin's dumb. And then like a couple months ago, he's like, I need to like learn about this thing. I'm like, yeah, dude, you do. Because like people cannot grasp the concept of a finite asset, right?
Right.
Like it
That's
breaks,
the best
like
part.
it doesn't work, right? Because like nothing else is finite, right?
Yeah.
And so like when I study it and it's like, it's part of me, it's so frustrating because I'm like, it's so obvious now that I see it, but like to the rest of the world, I'm like, oh, I didn't see it either, right?
Exactly.
And so I always ask the question for people that have been in it. The 2 questions I asked is, what turns you on to Bitcoin? And number 2, what would it take? Like, what would have to happen in order for you to go, I'm going to abandon my other investment strategy and leave it entirely for something else? Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100% it makes sense. I would say what drew me to Bitcoin was the finite supply, the peer-to-peer transactions, the no third party, like all of that.
Yeah.
Just knowing that there's 21 million and they can never create any more of it, like that's valuable because people want it and they can't just create more like the government does every single day.
but like what actually, like, was it books that you read? Was it
Yeah.
podcasts that you listened to? Like, what made you go, hmm. You know what I mean?
Somebody
Like,
somebody that I follow on social media, actually, who I really respect, and I've learned a lot just from their posts, and they don't
yeah,
know me and I don't know them. I've never talked
yeah,
to them. I just had followed them.
yeah,
They used to own property and they used to own stocks, and a
yeah,
couple of years ago they just sold everything and bought Bitcoin. And it just
yeah,
had me thinking, like, people that are smarter than me and richer than me and have more experience than me are buying Bitcoin. Like, what am I doing? Like, what am I
yeah,
not understanding that these other people
yeah,
are understanding? I think a big part of it for me, I did read the Bitcoin Standard.
yeah,
I have listened to a bunch of Lynn Alden videos, and most recently Michael Saylor, which, like, the way that he frames it and how he talks about it and how he explains it, like, it just resonated with me so much. Like,
yeah,
this person who's the CEO of MicroStrategy, like, has all of this money and is buying, like, has 200,000 Bitcoins, and now is like taking debt or issuing shares, taking on
yeah,
debt to buy
yeah,
Bitcoin to pay off the debt, for less later, like, is a complete hack. It's like, this
yeah,
makes so much sense because I
yeah,
understand it now. But to answer your question, I can see myself selling my real estate and buying
yeah,
Bitcoin. I can't see myself going 100% into Bitcoin just because of what I told you before about how I feel about stability and
yeah,
stability in my life and in my, investments. Like, a part of me has peace of mind knowing that I'm invested in something that historically for the last 100 years has done really well when Bitcoin's only
yeah,
been around for 15.
yeah,
Do I think Bitcoin's going away? No. Do I think Bitcoin's going
yeah,
to zero? No.
yeah,
Do I think the
yeah,
price of Bitcoin's going up? Yes.
yeah.
All of that is intact.
But
Um,
there's this.
there's
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
that, which is, not stable, obviously, which is fine.
yeah,
Um, but just the unknown. It's just honestly
yeah,
the fear of the unknown of, like, selling
yeah,
everything to go in on something. It seems risky to me, and I wouldn't do
yeah,
that. I wouldn't go all in on stocks, and I wouldn't go all in on real estate, and I just
yeah,
wouldn't go all in on Bitcoin. But maybe
yeah,
maybe we'll talk again in a few years, and my mind will
yeah.
be changed.
Yeah, perhaps. It's interesting because what that belief would say to me is that you believe Bitcoin is a potentially superior asset than real estate, but that the stock market is a more stable and predictable asset than Bitcoin or real estate is. Is
Agreed.
that
Yes,
okay? Yeah,
100%.
interesting. Interesting. Yeah, you and I have very different views of the stock market. I mean, keep in mind, I grew up with parents that don't have any retirement at all, and, like, I mean, I've been told many times, like, I am your retirement plan, and I'm like, oh, thank you. All
Yeah.
right, I guess got to take care of that.
Yeah.
We are over on time, and I
Yeah.
appreciate your time with this. This was a ton of fun. We'll have to do it again. It will be interested. It will be interesting to talk to you in even like 6 months or a year. Um, I have been I've been on the Bitcoin train as a I mean, as a, like, trading it for 4 or 5 years ago, right? But like for about 2.5 now, 2.5 to 3 years. Maybe it's been probably 4 years. Last bull run, like, I was kind of like in it, and
Mhm.
I would say it was about probably a year and a half to 2 years ago was when I had my moment of like, yikes, wow, right? And so I am one of those people that has bet, like, I've bet everything on it, right? Like, everything. Like, if I'm wrong, I mean, I'll be fine because I got the business, but like, I have no other plan, right? Like, that is the plan. It'll be
That's
interesting
awesome
to
to hear,
see
though.
it.
I
Yeah,
like really respect people that are convicted about, things, even if I'm not convicted about the same thing.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I respect that a lot. Like, that's amazing.
yep, yep. And I got my wife on board finally. It took some convincing, right? She's still like, but real estate is cash flow. That's a for sure thing. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't, but like, Bitcoin's more for sure. She's like, if you say so. But
Yeah.
we have the business to back up and fall on. So that's our stability, because she likes stability too. Like, she likes going on trips and all the fun things. And now
Yeah,
we have a daughter.
exactly.
So there's
Awesome.
that. So thank you so much for coming on. Real quick, we do some rapid fire questions just to kind of wrap up everything.
Okay.
Before we do that, I know you don't have a website or anything like that, but where can people find you on social?
At Lindsay Stamp 3 on Twitter. That's it.
At Lindsay Stamp 3. We will link that down below. Go give her a follow. I enjoy your content. I
Thank
enjoy
you.
going back and forth with you. And guys, actually, someone I would actually say recommend going and following. So
Thank you.
cool. Rapid fire questions for you. What is one bucket list item that you have not yet done in your life?
See the Northern Lights from Iceland.
That's cool. Um, who is one person that you want to meet before you die?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Um, Elon Musk.
Yeah, that's mine.
Is he?
Yeah,
I
he's
just
my
think I find him so interesting. Like
yeah,
the way he thinks is
yeah,
different than I think than a lot of people think, which is cool.
yeah, yeah. Mine is Elon Musk, Tom Brady, and Donald Trump. Just because I'm like Donald Trump was such a part of he's such a part of history that I'm like I'm alive at the same time of him. Like I just want to meet the dude,
I'd be
right? Like
starstruck if I met Steph Curry. I'll say that. Like
Steph
that would
Curry.
be
All right,
incredible.
he's your dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm Tom Brady's my sports figure. So, what's one book that you think everybody should read?
Psychology of Money.
Psychology of Money. Two more. One, what is the biggest money principle shift that you have made, like since you've learned about money?
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
For sure.
We're definitely
100%.
gonna have to have a follow-up conversation on that.
Like when I tell you, you probably could find tweets in from the last 8 months ago of me saying that Bitcoin makes absolutely no sense and I have no idea why anybody would put their money in it, to today being like, I buy Bitcoin every single Friday and it's not enough.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. And there never will be. Amazing. Last question. And this is kind of like a end of your life type of big thinking future question. Imagine you're on your deathbed and every single person that you've been called to impact. So not everybody that you've met, but just every person that you've been called to impact or leave something with. They will forget everything about you, everything you've ever told them, said, taught them. However, you get to leave them with one final message that they will believe and live out at face value. What's the message?
The message would be, I'm going to roll two into one.
Perfect.
Life is so short. Our time on this earth is a blimp. In 2 generations, nobody is going to remember you ever again. The things that you're worried about, looking dumb, looking stupid, making mistakes, don't matter. Do everything you can in your lifetime. And if there's something that you are dying to accomplish, find somebody who's accomplished it and do what they did. That's what I would tell them.
Fantastic. That's great advice. Perfect to end on. Lindsay Stamp, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Everybody go check her out. And that's all for today. Until next time, that's all I've got. See you next time.
Thanks, Josh.
Peace.